Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Bella Basta from Drum Consulting, and today we're going to blow the lid off of everything insurance. If you are a pet sitter just starting out and listed on one of those popular online places. Today, I have with me someone that you should get to know pretty well if you don't know already. His name is David Pearsall, and he's from Business Insurers of the Carolinas. David, thank you for taking some time out to be here with me today.
Sure thing. I look forward to it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Bella.
So I have found myself amongst a exciting group of pet sitters that are starting as this shared economy kind of starts exploding. And they're the pet sitters that are listed on a lot of these popular apps and websites. It's the sign up, put your name here and get some clients and start boarding dogs in your home, or being a dog walker or a pet sitter. And gosh, it reminds me when I first started, David. I actually wrote a blog post, and I believe that we all were one of these pet sitters when we first started, so to speak. We just didn't have the organization online to do it with, right? Um,
Yeah, it's amazing what's coming out today.
and when I started, it was maybe a little easier for me because I always just knew that I needed to be insured. And at the time, I went to a national organization, and I thought I could only be insured through a national organization, which we all now know isn't necessarily true, but you do get some benefits of going that way. And so I just wanted to have you on today to kind of set the record straight. I want you to talk to me as if I am someone on one of those popular apps, and tell me what I really need to know. Is it enough? I've been told that I'm insured. So is that's all it is? Like, do I need to look for anything in particular? Um, Even as a new pet sitter starting out, what is business insurance? Like, give me the 101, I guess.
Okay, certainly the business liability insurance everybody should have. If you're going out and you're pet sitting for somebody or you're boarding in your own home, you still need liability insurance. And I understand that both these organizations or all of the above are offering insurance through their sites. And the key is to understand what you have and request a copy of your policy if they'll give it to you, and if they won't give it to you, you should ask why.
Yeah.
Because really, if you're the one that's insured under that policy, you ought to be able to get a copy of it.
And by getting a
You know,
copy
get,
of it, what kind of things are we looking at? Okay, so business liability, that means if I break something, I'm covered, right? Or wrong?
well,
It's a lot more involved,
liability
right?
insurance. No, it's a good question. Liability insurance covers bodily injury and property damage to a third party generally.
Hmm.
And that could be a third party, could be someone that's out on a walk that has nothing to do with you. It just comes up and tries to pet a dog that you're walking and it gets bit. Or it could be to your clients, or it could be uh, any property damage to the client's home. It typically would not cover your home because that's the first party coverage. So
Hmm.
typically there's really no way to cover your home because the homeowner's insurance would typically exclude business liability. So if you're boarding in your home, there really is no way to cover your personal property there.
Right.
So the liability is going to cover others, the third party, your clients. It's going to cover the pets of the third party. You want to look for some care, custody, and control coverage. That's what we termed it when we first started. But there's also forms out on the market today called Animal Bailey and Pet Groomers Professional. And under those forms, they also give you some coverage for the animals in your care. It's not
Yeah.
quite the same, but that's what you need to look for. You need to make sure you have a liability policy, $1 million limits recommended, and then make sure you have coverage for care, custody, or control because that's the pets in your care and usually the property in your care.
Okay, that's really good. So custody, care, and control helps cover my the pets in my control. That sounds kind of
Yep,
funny.
your care.
Um, I want to get this in just because this is the beginning of our interview, and I know a lot of people kind of start and then they click away. And I remember when I first started, I thought, "Ooh, business liability insurance. That sounds really like scary and sketchy and expensive." But I kind of looked at some of these sites, and it seems as though if I ever needed to call upon the insurance on these sites, I have to pay if they allow me access to the insurance, which that needs to be talked about too. I have to pay either $250 deductible or $500 deductible. So that means I have to pay that money before they even kick in any kind of coverage for me. Now, just using good thought here, David, how much could a pet sitter get a decent policy for?
Well, that's a good question. And your definition of decent is a big question too, because there are a lot of policies being sold out there through random websites, through insurance agents all across the country. Some I've seen as low as $129. How they're offering that price, I don't know. That's when you need to question what the policy covers.
Yeah.
And that's why you need to go through it with a licensed agent and understand what you're getting.
Right.
Because not all policies are the same. And, that's what we look at is we try to offer the broadest form possible through our association plans. We also work with large insurance companies like CNA and Travelers. I read a lot of coverage forms.
You sure do. You've read a lot for me.
There's not any that seem to be quite the same, because even from one insurance company to the next, they may use the same primary insuring agreement, but it's the endorsements that they attach behind it that could change or limit coverage. And then the question comes up with deductibles, and that's what I think you're referring to when you say the $100 or $500 to use it.
Yeah.
But that's going to come in any policy. Most, under our association plans, we offer a $100 deductible for any claim.
Yeah.
We have some insurers will offer a zero deductible when it comes to liability, such as a dog bite, but then they'll offer a $500 deductible for anything that happens to the animals in your care, custody, and control, or a $250 deductible. Just like your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance, you're going to have deductibles pretty much anywhere you go.
Yeah.
You just need to look and see what you can, take. And what can you take on? Usually you want to take on a higher deductible if you can afford to do so, if it makes the most sense. But if you're living on a limited budget, you need to take that in consideration. You need to see, well, am I going to be okay if somebody gets hurt, the injury happens, am I going to be able to cough up $100 or $250 or $500, et cetera, to make sure I can get my claim covered.
I kind of feel like if I had to pay a $500 deductible, I would rather pay $500 deductible knowing that it was my policy and that it covered a lot, like everything I needed, than have to pay $500, go through someone else, try to make sure it covers me, and then realize that I need to buy my own policy when I kind of could have put that money towards my own policy. Is that the right kind of thinking?
Well, I agree with you. I think everybody should have their own coverage and their own policy, or if they have a master policy, at least a certificate of coverage that shows what they have, and preferably a copy of the master policy that shows what they have, because that you're entitled to it. If you are an insured, you are entitled to see the coverage forms that are covering you. And if someone's limiting you to that, I would probably go elsewhere as far as getting my insurance.
Yeah.
So, that those are things you have to consider on your own, going into this as your business. I personally would want to have my own policy. I personally would recommend that everybody have a policy on their own.
I always say I've never not met a pet sitting business owner who's not a control freak. And so if you're a control freak out there and you want to know everything, or at least, know what you're covered for, sometimes having your own policy is the best. I personally, I have my own policy. What else do you think is important if I'm just a new pet sitter starting out, learning about business insurance liability and trying to figure out like what's best for me? And we touched on the $129 policy. What kind of things should I look for to see if that actually is or is not for me?
Okay, well, some of the things you want to look for are in a policy is the policy primary or is it excess over any other policy that's out there that you may have in play? I've been reading a lot of coverage forms, over the last few years, and you'll find some that will say we will not cover a dog bite unless there's absolutely no other policy that will cover you.
Right.
And a lot of that seems to be with like Lloyd's of London policies, which are, they're policies that are put together by, a group of investors at Lloyd's that decides that we're going to give this a shot, and this is what we want to cover and what we don't want to cover. And so they can be very limiting in nature. You also have to look at how much they're giving you for animal bailey or care, custody, or control.
Mm-hmm.
You also want to look at the limit they're giving you for property if you're going into people's homes, because once you're given the keys to someone's home, you have that property in your care, custody, or control. And the whole reason we bring up the care, custody, or control is because under the general liability ISO form, which most any insurer uses, there's an exclusion for personal property in your care, custody, or control. That's what brought about the whole pet sitting industry when it comes to insurance, because pets are in your care, custody, and control, and people's contents, when you get keys to their house, are in your care, custody, and control. If it's excluded, you have to have coverage somewhere. So what we did was we took away and gave back coverage under an endorsement that we call, a personal property in your care, custody, and control. And that's how we market our program. However, we work with other companies like CNA and Travelers, and they covered under an animal bailey form, which is a property form. It's not a liability form at all. So that's under a property form. Then they give you pet groomers professional liability, but you have to be careful at reading those forms because they cover pet groomers, they cover boarding kennels, and some of them will cover pet sitters. But you have to be very careful. Those forms are covering animals. They're nowhere in there are they covering personal property in your care, custody, or control. And so the association policies that we offered were covering both. A lot of these policies are limiting and they're only covering the animals. So if you damage, let's say you left water on in someone's apartment and it seeped through and damaged all the contents, or you left it on in a house upstairs and it damaged all the contents below when the ceiling caved in.
Totally happened to me before.
That would all be excluded under an unenforced policy because of personal property, care, custody, or control. So you have to consider that. And a lot of the forms that I'm reading, even from these new providers that are, websites, they seem to be very limiting. And I have yet to read a policy, so I can't honestly give you insight on what their forms say. Right. I can only give you insight on what their websites read.
Yeah.
And what I've read is it seems to be very limiting. And so things you need to take into consideration. I noticed that they exclude meet and greets. So if you're going out to meet someone and, something happens, one of the things that's important for everybody to understand is the difference between workers' compensation and general liability. I get a lot of pet sitters. They come to me for the first time and they want coverage. And they say, okay, what do I need? I tell them, well, first you need a liability policy. You get your liability policy. Some people have the thought process that that's covering their injuries. And that's not the case because workers' comp is the exclusive remedy for employee injuries. It's the only way to cover your independent contractors that are working for you if they're uninsured, unless they provide you with a certificate showing they're covered elsewhere. And it's the only way to cover anyone that's working for you. So,
yourself, right? You could take it out on yourself if you wanted to, right?
Absolutely. You do. All states allow you to elect or reject coverage as an owner. So you can either have the choice of covering just your employees, or you can cover yourself if you're a one-person show. So that you can make sure that if you get bitten or if you slip and fall and get hurt, which I see these claims all the time, we're writing more workers' comp for pet sitters. And so, if you're going to do a meet and greet and you slip and fall or get bitten, they're not going to cover that. So that would be a workers' comp claim. They're not going to cover any injuries to people in your household. So if you have people that are your boarding pets in your home and you get injured or bitten, again, that's going to be workers' comp.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that goes into play is your contents are not going to be covered. So if you bring a dog into your house and it gets out of its spot, let's say you kept it in the bathroom or kept it somewhere, it got out and it's a puppy, used up all your furnishings, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Because your policy won't cover it either because there's an exclusion for business liability under all homeowners policies.
Right.
There is endorsement to a homeowner's policy that you could add, but that's only if you get your homeowner's carrier to add it. And it's very doubtful that they would, knowing what you're doing. You're boarding pets. It's basically the endorsement is for incidental business, but they're going to look at the type of business you're running. If you're running a boarding kennel out of your house, they're going to question that, and they probably won't even want to insure you anymore. So it's going to be a tough sell.
Now, David, we're only like 15 minutes into this interview, and I can already see and hear our listeners going, oh my God, and being so overwhelmed and stressed. And you guys, I want to take a minute to say, please don't let that paralyze you. There is help out there, and there's I'm definitely not the expert in it, but I have a loud enough platform that I want to encourage you to contact David. David is not any salesman. He's not any high pressure salesman. He is just as much about education as I am. He will review any policy that you have. I've known him for years. He's the nicest person ever. He'll explain it inside out, backwards, forwards. You just need to say, whoa, wait, can you say that again? Or can you rewind? How many times have I done that to you? And this is probably like our 5th interview that we're doing because he wants us all to be educated. So I want to encourage you that if this is starting to feel like it's over your head or too much information, don't get scared or paralyzed and run away, because you'll thank me that time when you actually need the insurance and you know you have it. Now, David, I got a question in my group, and it said, if I carry the Rover or DogVacay insurance packages, should I consider purchasing independent insurance? Do the benefits outweigh the cost? Could you speak to that? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening in right now have that same question.
Yeah, it's in my personal opinion, that if you can't read their policy, you should get a policy that you can read that's going to protect you. Not only for that, but just in reading some of the things they exclude on their websites.
Yeah.
I have a list here, but so it says like damage to the sitter or dog walker's personal property, which we know there's no coverage for. Injuries to the sitter, dog walker, anyone related to or living with the dog, with the sitter or walker, or anyone helping provide coverage. Now that's a workers' comp policy. So if nothing else, if you want to protect yourself, from running your business, if you get hurt, because the workers' comp policy will pay your medical injuries, they'll pay doctor's bills, they'll pay medicine, any type of pharmacy charges, but they'll also cover disability. So if you can't work, they will pay for you they will replenish your lost revenue from your business while you're out of work.
I just want to say, I think that's something really important, that if you are a DogVacay or a Rover or anything like that kind of pet sitter, and you are using this, I've met a lot of pet sitters recently that they make this their full-time job and they're happy and it's great. And I love that. But I want you to consider, like, what would happen if the next pets that you went to, you did slip and fall and break your ankle, like David was saying, and you are doing 5 visits a day, 5 days a week. You're making a pretty good income for yourself, and that would be a major financial dent, because all of a sudden you couldn't do it. You probably lose your clients because they need to find someone else. But at least if you saved up some money and got a workman's comp policy on yourself, at least you could still have some income while you were healing and have yourself taken care of. So it's almost an entirely different mind shift when you are a part of this. And I guess while I'm saying this, I also want to say that I think it's incredible that DogVacay and Rover actually do offer something. I feel like there's a little bit of miscommunication in the industry on what that something is, which is what inspired me to do this video today. By pure definition, you are an independent contractor for Rover or DogVacay. So I also got the question, well, Bella, maybe we should tell them to get us better insurance. And I'm like, no. If they did that, you would be an employee, and that's not their model. That's not what you signed up for. So I see this break between education here in the middle. You have these online websites, and then pet sitters thinking, oh, I have insurance, but not understanding what that means. And their websites, although you might not be able to, I haven't been able to see the actual policies, they do a good job of summarizing what we do not cover. And you, as a business owner or independent contractor, it's important for you to look past the snuggly kitties and kittens and puppies and dog walking and exercise, and actually take a good look at the business implications that you could be having on yourself, your home, and your family. And David is just such a great, you do great inventories of people's liability exposure. And again, I cannot stress enough, if you're listening to this today, I really want you to call up David and say, hey, this is what I've got. Where am I left liable? Where am I left vulnerable? And what are my options? And can you explain it to me in a way that I can understand, so that at least you're not, pardon the expression, ignorant to your situation? They're great methods of making money. I'm absolutely not saying it's bad, but what I am saying is that there needs to be more education on this topic. David, sorry, I just went off on a tangent there.
No, you're fine.
But go on back to your list there, because I love this list.
One thing before I go back to the list, I do want to point out the same thing that you said, because I'm a believer in getting it all out there and being positive where and giving notoriety where it's due.
Yeah.
And both of these sites do cover your pets, which most coverages, most policies would not cover your own pets.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
there is some pluses there. Now, even you might have to pay a $500 deductible or a $250 deductible, but at least you would have some coverage if your own pet, let's say two dogs got in a fight and it was one of the ones you were boarding and your own personal pet, you certainly want your pet taken care of. Even our association policies don't cover your own pet, because that's the first party coverage. That's a dog that you own, you're responsible for. We're taking care of. Most liability policies are going to take care of the dogs that you're taking care of, not your own.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some pluses. One of the things, if you do any work outside of either Rover or DogVacay, you have to understand you definitely need your own policy, because that coverage will not apply, because this is a policy for them and the people who are working through their programs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do any pet sitting outside or any boarding and you don't book with them, or you met a client and they say, well, I don't want to deal with Rover, but I want to deal with you. In that case, you probably need to look into having your own liability policy, just to protect you, even if you know that person and they're your best friend.
Right.
Because I've been this long enough to see people turn when a claim happens.
Right.
So if there's a fight or an incident, you want to be protected. Looks like treatment costs for medical or vet bills as a result of a dog illness, pre-existing condition, or preventable care. Well, I agree with that. Most policies are going to exclude that, because that's not your responsibility. If a dog has pre-existing conditions, or if they have a disease that was given to them prior to being with you, that's one thing. Now, if you cause the incident, like if your dog were to give something to them, we would cover that under our liability policies, and most would. So that's going to be considered like a bodily injury or a property damage claim to a pet. So if anything happens to the pets while you're in your control, there's two ways of looking at this, and I don't know that it's spelled out on these websites. We cover vet medical regardless of fault. I read a lot of policies that'll limit you to $1,000 or maybe even up to $5,000 for that coverage. An example of vet medical regardless of fault would be, let's say the dog tore its ACL just by running in the backyard.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
It sure does, yeah.
And you know what? You're not negligent. So you didn't cause that. The dog was running. And another thing is, let's say the dog's out in your backyard and ingests a rock or a stick. Another claim that happens all the time. Or they ingest a toy, that they were playing with. You aren't negligent just because that dog acts, because you didn't make that dog act.
Right.
And so because of that, you have to watch the vet medical limit and the care, custody, and control limit. So because most policies under the care, custody, or control, or the animal bailey or the professional liability, they're only going to cover you if you're negligent. There's a lot of claims that go on where you're not negligent, and there's a gray area. So again, that's why I would love to see their coverage form to see where that coverage starts and stops.
Yeah.
And it could be that they're willing to pay some of those claims out of pocket, and that could be Rover, it could be DogVacay. I don't know the answer to that until I see their policy.
Wouldn't it be so great if we could get like on a 3-way interview one day with them, and just like them as the people and you as like the insurance expert, and like me as like I'll represent all the pet sitters. I don't know. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I agree. I would love to, because again, all I want to do is educate the public.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for so long, and we can educate both the pet owners, the pet sitters, and the people who are selling insurance that really is not as good as it could be.
Right.
I'd like to educate them all, because it really would help bring the industry up.
Yeah.
As opposed to having people who have claims that aren't covered, or they're limited, and then they have a headache, and then they hate insurance. I mean, you
deal with the oopsies all the time, huh? People probably are crying to you on the phone daily. Like, what do you mean it's not covered?
I won't say daily, but I would say at least monthly I get somebody crying. And
man.
And I want to help them. I mean, the good in me wants to be like, I want to pay that claim. I want to pay it right now. I'm sorry. Let me call the company. And I'll call the company, and they still won't be able to do certain things if they're limited. It just depends on what the form says. That's why I preach over and over, get your coverage forms. I'll be happy to review them for you, or you can take them to a licensed insurance agent that you trust in your local area, but have somebody review the coverage forms to see where the limitations, the exclusions, and where coverage starts and stops.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's been about 25 minutes now. I like to kind of keep them short and sweet. I think we've given everyone some really good food for thought, and I didn't really intend to, but if anyone from DogVacay or Rover is listening to this, which I hope you guys do, and you want to join us, please contact me. I'm all over the internet, and I'm sure there's some contact where the video is, and we would love to get on like just a panel and just talk about it, because I feel like insurance, I still don't like insurance myself, no offense. It's still so complicated to me. And I know there's a lot of people that feel that way. You know, we're pet sitters and dog walkers and dog boarders and groomers and trainers. We're not insurance experts. So I'm so glad that you always take the time. David is always up to say, yeah, Bella, when do you want to do it? You know, I asked him yesterday to do this, and today he's on. So David, from all of us pet sitters all over the world, thank you for being you and helping us out. Everyone else, if you want to get in contact with David, go ahead and go to Business Insurers of the Carolinas. Or David, what's your email? That probably is a good way too, right?
Thank you. My email is D as in David, P as in Pearsall at business-insurers.com.
Awesome. And I'll put that in like the show notes too.
Yeah. Find us on the internet. It's business-insurers.com.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And please, please know exactly what you're covered for so that you are not crying on the phone to your insurance agent one day. Take care.